Who will win the Premier League this season? I can show you 6 players, 3 teams, in 3 stages for 1 trophy. Hi, I'm Wayne and welcome to Goals by the Numbers. Let's just get straight into it. So, with the Premier League, the new Premier League season upon us in the next 3-ish weeks, pre-season's still ongoing, teams are playing various matches all across the globe, and as we are all excited to have football officially come back, ultimately, there are likely to be 3 teams that are going to win the Premier League. One of those teams, which will be close, but not quite close enough, will be Chelsea. Good team, great squad, loads of potential, but I think a bit too much potential at this point. So I think in the next 2 or 3 years, as their players mature and develop as a squad, they are going to become a serious contender. But they're not one of the teams we're going to discuss today. So, 3 teams. We have Arsenal, we have Manchester City, and the current champions Liverpool. So what do those teams have in common? Namely, it's their goalkeepers. As we previously discussed in a previous video, the teams that have won the Premier League in the recent seasons have all had sweeper keepers, being Edison, or hybrid keepers, Alisson. And as I said, when I watch Alisson, he looks like a sweeper keeper, but statistically speaking, he's a hybrid. Good shot stopper, good with his feet, so hybrid. So, on to our first club, that being the former champions Manchester City. The first player we will speak about will be Ait-Nori. Ait-Nori has joined Manchester City from Wolves, or Wolverhampton Wanderers, to give them their full name. A club where he used to play as a left wing back. But at Manchester City, I would expect him to play as a pure fullback. Ait-Nori is a really interesting player. Still reasonably young at 24. To say that he is a great dribbler is a bit of an understatement. So in terms of pure numbers, his successful take-ons compared to other fullbacks puts him in the 97th percentile. You only have to look at the matches he plays or just see him online. With the ball at his feet, he's a very good dribbler. And Pep teams, traditionally, have been teams that have focused very much on players who are good at passing the ball and moving, as opposed to runners. But part of the reason I believe that Manchester City will change the way they play from this season going forward, after the season they previously had, is that they are going to try and blend more runners into their team so that they can change up how they play. They have Dorku, who good player, great runner with the ball, likes to isolate his fullback one-on-one, beat him and get a cross in. That's great. So you've got him who can do that at a really good level. But then outside of that, they've got players who are capable of being dribblers, but do they tend to dribble a lot? And this is where Ait-Nori comes in. Expect him to run the ball, not just down the flank, but also cut in as well. Expect a few tricks, a few step overs, and a really big smile whilst he's doing it. Now, as a defender and as a fullback, if I was to call out one part of his game statistically, which might be of a weakness for Manchester City, and admittedly, the idea of a defender running towards his goal is always a dangerous scenario. But if a team were to attack down Manchester City's right, cross the ball towards the back post, in terms of the amount of aerials that Ait-Nori wins in the air, he is in the 36th percentile. So the likelihood is, if a ball can get crossed towards the back post and someone challenge him in the air, he's not going to win. Does that stop him being a good player? No, certainly not. And just the sheer fact of running back towards your own goal to defend is admittedly hard, but that could be a potential weakness. Aerials one, and also progressive passes and interceptions. He doesn't tend to fare quite well at those. So trying to intercept his passes and crosses towards the back post where he is defending, that might be a bit of a gap for teams to exploit. Now, the other player to mention is Nypan, who is a young midfielder who's come over to England, specifically Manchester, from Rosenborg. So Nypan is 18. I believe that he may actually be a Manchester United fan, which makes this transfer really interesting. But watching him play, and because the league he plays in, there aren't that many statistics I can verify as being of high quality. But having watched him play a few times, he is a hardworking midfielder, likes to run with the ball in certain situations, especially in the final third, to create. A bit like Rinders is going to do. He'll run and then pass the ball a short distance to break the lines and assist players. In terms of a weakness for him, it may just be youth. Because at 18, moving to the Premier League, he's going to have time to adapt. I assume he will already speak English, as most Europeans tend to do. Quite well, actually, I might add. But the good thing for him is the fact that he's joining a relatively stable squad, very stable club. So for him, it's just a waiting game. When things click and go well, he's going to be a really good player for them over the next, just over a decade, right? At 18, could get 10 years out of him before selling him on for a last big payday. So on to our second section, where we have Arsenal. Arsenal, for the last few seasons, have been the perennial bridesmaid and not the bride, with their repeat performance of finishing second multiple times. I actually think the last season when Liverpool won the league would have been particularly left a bit of a bitter taste, especially when the club, the team, the squad would have got to say where they would have believed if we can finish ahead of Manchester City, we are going to win the league. Only for Liverpool to not come out of nowhere, but to just absolutely click and start firing all cylinders and just blow everybody away by scoring a copious amount of goals. So we have Arsenal. They have signed 6 players. Interestingly, 2 from Chelsea. Now, Kepa and Madueke, they're not bad players. But when I look at Chelsea, when I look at the type of players that Chelsea have sold over the last few seasons, there seems to be a bit of a theme where Chelsea are able to get absolutely everything out of a player and then move them on, and then the club who takes that player on is left with a bit of a dud. So again, I don't wish anybody a bad experience when they move from one club to another club, but I think it might be interesting to keep a close eye on Kepa and Madueke. I suppose, to be fair, Kepa is the backup keeper, so there's a bit more of a scope for him to not be absolutely amazing from the get-go. But for Madueke, it might get very interesting very quick. So, in our second section, the 2 players to speak about are, firstly, we have Martin Zubimendi. Now, to describe Zubimendi, I would use 2 descriptors. The first would be to call him a metronome. His stats, he doesn't really have that many stats which stand out outside of clearances, which is very good for a player who essentially is regarded as a defensive midfielder, or I suppose, to be fair, a deep line playmaker. So he almost keeps the game running and helps the team retain and recycle possession. Zubimendi is the kind of player who, if you watch a match, you don't really see him do anything that stands out to the point where you think he's rubbish. Why is this guy here? But the way I think about Zubimendi would be like salt. You eat so many different meals, so many different foods, and you think, oh yeah, it's fine. But that one time you need to put salt in your food and you don't have it, you really notice it. And I think that's what Zubimendi is. He's going to come in to Arsenal, team who are really good in terms of the amount of possession that they retain, and he's just going to help things keep ticking along. Get the ball, pass it on. Get the ball, pass it on. So in terms of weaknesses for Zubimendi, it would be his actual creative output. So assists and shot creating actions. So what we will find is Zubimendi will be in a position where he clears the ball or intercepts the ball or tackles the ball. He essentially acquires the ball. Now what Zubimendi will do, he will pass the ball to someone as an attacker, and they will become the person who essentially is going to be the one who gets the shot creating action or the goal creating action. So again, from an attacking point of view, statistically, he doesn't tend to have anything which is really standout-ish. But remember, just like salt, when you do not have it, you really do miss it. And to speak to another player to speak about who's been acquired by Arsenal is Christian Nørgaard. Now, when I heard about this deal happening, I was like, why are they buying him? But Norgaard has moved from Brentford, a club which has lost its manager. I believe the owners are also looking to sell the club, so now seems to be a good time to kind of, recycle a few players and move them on, i.e. Brian Mbeumo, who's recently moved to Manchester United. So in the case of Norgaard, statistically, he is very similar to Martin Zubimendi. Similar kind of profile, slight tweaks. So Norgaard tends to win more balls in the air. Absolutely fine. I think the benefit of Norgaard for Arsenal will be the fact that he was Brentford's captain. He's coming into the club and he's 31 now. So he's an experienced pro. Spent multiple years playing in England, so there'll be no real need for him to spend time adapting to the pace of the league. So he can come in and be effective. I think what will be most interesting for Norgaard is the fact that, to me, a non-Arsenal fan, it looks as if Arsenal have acquired a metronome in Zubimendi and found an alternative who can come in the short term. As he's 31, he could play for 5-6 years, who knows? But the fact that he can come in at 31, being a captain of a club, leadership, so a leader, it's multiple years of experience at his age, and he would be the understudy. So whenever we have a game, we think, okay, maybe it's not for Zubimendi because, it's going to be particularly rough, it's away from home. What would be at those kind of grounds like Everton? Put Norgaard in. Don't worry about Zubimendi being roughed up by the Everton players up north. Just put Norgaard in. He won't be phased. He'll probably enjoy it. Well, yeah, okay, this is what I'm here for. In terms of weaknesses, for Norgaard, we've got his longevity because of his age and progressive carries. He does not run with the ball. It's a very, very, very... It registers low on the stat. But again, should we have defensive midfielders running with the ball? I mean, that would make them creative players, right? So outside of that, we've also got his attacking output as well. So same thing to Zubimendi. Shot creating actions doesn't register too high, but again, Norgaard is there to provide a stable head, win the ball, pass the ball on to more creative players, and let them do their thing. So we have the metronome, the salt, and then the experienced pro who can come in and back him up when needed. Okay, so last but certainly not least, because they won the title last season, you can tell I'm a little bit bitter. We have Liverpool. So, stage 3. The first player I would mention which I think is interesting for the players that Liverpool signed, would be Milos Kerkez. So Kerkez is like 21, came from Bournemouth, where just watching him play, he seems like he's right, best way to describe it. He seems really up for it. Like every game, every tackle, every pass, he looks really up for it. And I think the good thing about Kerkez is you have him at 21. You've got Robertson at 31. So you've got a nice gap where one player can be transitioned out as another player can be transitioned in for the long term. Liverpool are going to get, assuming everything goes right, Liverpool are going to get a decade out of this guy. Now, statistically, the one thing that kind of stands out among his stats is progressive carries. When Kerkez decides he's going to run with the ball, he's going to run with the ball. He doesn't necessarily have the flair that an Ait-Nori has, but when he goes forward, he's dribbling the ball, carrying it forward with a purpose. He's not doing it for the sake of doing. He's doing because he wants to cross and assist someone. Statistically, his tackling is in one of the lower percentiles for a fullback. To be fair, the amount of time Liverpool are going to be attacking, when is he going to have the time to tackle anyone? I mean, this could actually make his stat worse. If his team's constantly attacking, where is he going to be able to actually make the tackles to improve the stat? So, in terms of Kerkez, I assume we'll see him kind of share the left back role with Robertson for like maybe a season, maybe two, before kind of stepping forward to be the main left back. And whereas you have Jeremy Frimpong on the right, who is a runner, Kerkez is in a similar vein, but just doesn't have the raw output yet. It could be because he's in the Premier League and he's at Bournemouth, whereas Frimpong was at Bayer Leverkusen and he won the title like a season or so ago. But keep an eye on Kerkez. If he doesn't do well, there'll be a lot. I mean, it'd be surprising. And with Kerkez, our last player would be Florian Wirtz. Now, Florian Wirtz, he's come from Leverkusen, the same club as Frimpong. He cost a really big transfer. Liverpool's highest transfer. I think the Premier League's highest transfer, actually. Now, I've watched Wirtz several times. He has really good close control. He looks and plays kind of similar to the eye, to Musiala. He'll dribble past players like they're not even there. Very intricate, very delicate, almost surgical in his approach. And statistically, we can compare him to Ryan Cherky, who Manchester City have just signed. Now, with Wirtz, in terms of his stats that he doesn't do well in, the two worst stats are tackles and clearances. But when you consider the position he plays in, that though tackles and clearances doesn't really matter. Doesn't mean it's Liverpool. He's going to be attacking anyway. Like Kerkez, how is he going to improve his stat when he's probably going to be tackling less because Liverpool have the ball and they are relentless in their attack constantly? But in terms of stats where Wirtz does flourish, he has 5 of them in the top 90 percentile or 90th percentile. So from Wirtz, you can expect a lot of passes. You can expect a lot of dribbles, as in successful dribbles past players. You can expect a lot of shot creating actions, assists, progressive passes. Wirtz is going to come to Liverpool, to the Premier League, and he's going to look to create chances for other players. I envisage a scenario where Salah scores the same amount of goals. And I also think with Hugo Ekitike coming in, assumedly to play as the main striker, Wirtz just could be feeding all these players chances. It looks like a really good signing because it is a really good signing. I mean, the only real negative I can think of is a few years ago he did his ACL, but with modern technology, that shouldn't really be a barrier to entry. So unless he flops, which I don't think is likely because he comes from the Bundesliga, a league which is quite physical anyway, especially in terms of its running. Do German players typically come over to England and struggle? I mean, the last one I can remember off the top of my head would be, Christian Ziege? And that was in the 90s. He was a Tottenham. He was a left back at Tottenham, and he just didn't want to defend. he just wanted to run forward and never run back. So yeah, he didn't really do very well. But that was then. This is now. Wirtz and Kerkez, everything is in place for them to do really well. I mean, unless Liverpool acquire a squad which is just so good it implodes because the players are just too good to figure it out. But Yeah, Liverpool have everything in place to replicate what they did last season. I guess the only question is will they? So, as we summarize, 6 players, 3 teams, in 3 stages, 1 Premier League title. At this point, again, really excited to see the Premier League start. We've walked through the 3 teams and 2 players from each team who we think will be interesting as the season unfolds. And at this point, what I would say is enjoy the video, enjoy the rest of your day, and below in the comments, put who you think is going to win the title. I think it's actually going to be Arsenal. Catch you later.